Drummers say we love the alcohol, la 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 la. Just line 'em up and we will drink them all, la 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 la. But my mother always said, if you want to drink all day, you best start in the morning, son, 'cause that's the Irish way. We don't get drunk, we get awesome, and every other mother will agree. We don't get drunk, we get awesome, so order up around for you and me. We don't get drunk, we get awesome, and every mother must agree. We don't get drunk, we get awesome, so order up around for you and me, and you and me, and you and me. Let there be whiskey.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Nerds with Alcohol. I'm Chris.
I'm Russ.
And this is episode 376.
376, back in the nerd basement, the virtual nerd basement. It is a rainy, holy shit, rainy, cool, very cool.
Oh, it's, dude, I got the windows open. So you may hear some sounds outside coming in, but
It was so nice. If it's only about 68 degrees today. 68.
yeah, it's like, I think it says, my thing here says 69 right now. If you're us, what number are we thinking of right now? 69. It is us.
Man, we are old.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it was very rainy, and the cable company was supposed to be doing work on the internet in my area. They told me they were doing upgrades, which is good because my signal's been dropping on and off for about 4 days. And then it comes right back, but it'll drop and it'll be up for like 10 minutes and it'll drop and it'll be up for like, 3 hours and then it might drop again, or it'll be up for 8 hours and then drop all of a sudden. But because they told me they were going to be doing work and not going to, and there be intermittent connectivity, I went into the office today so that I could do that. Well, it was raining this overnight, and 94 sucks on a normal day.
Yeah.
And it really sucks when it rains. And yeah, so it took me over an hour to get into work.
Wow.
Yeah, it had me get off. It took me 94 to Connor and then over to Gratiot and then Gratiot till I got on 75 to take it that way. It wasn't good. And then home, it was about 45 minutes. So it wasn't horrible coming home. But yeah, it just, and now they're saying that, and then they sent me a text around probably 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning that said, hey, we weren't able to finish today because of the rain, I'm sure. So we'll let you know when we're going to do it again. And then I got another text this afternoon saying, hey, we're going to start tomorrow. We're going to be working again tomorrow. It's starting at 6 a.m. Intermittent outages again. So lucky me, I get to go back in the office tomorrow.
I got to go back in the office every day. So
yeah, but see, your job
you
can't be done remote.
No.
Yet. No. Just wait till you get those robotic arms and you can just control them from home like a video game.
No, that's no. I dare to dream. Right?
I was going to say, no, you were going to say, nah, I don't want that. And then you thought about it for a second and
I'd still end up having to go in to like refill the paint sprayer, arm, and I'd have to refill.
No, you'd wind up with Dummy as your robot.
Yeah.
You spray me with that again.
Donate you to Caltech.
So how was your week?
Well, today was a little nuts. Like the rain got so heavy, and I was telling you before the show, a lot of times if the rain is super heavy, if it rains as we know, if it rains outside, it rains inside at my building. And if it's a light rain, even if it's a steady light rain throughout the day, usually we can handle it, we can deal with it and stuff. But when it starts raining really hard, particularly for a long period of time like it did today, it gets to the point where we can't keep up with the puddles and the drainage system gets overwhelmed and everything. So we ended up closing up the shop early. We had volunteers in today too, but they did buy us pizza, so that was nice. They gave good pizza for lunch. So anyway, it was a little problematic, but I was able, we got out of there a little bit early today, and that was kind of nice. And the rest of the week, I mean, we gamed on Friday,
Yep.
which is nice. We had another kind of no combat, but a lot of RP kind of stuff. Merrick Harris visited with his lovely sister, and
Eventually.
eventually, after we had some kind of whisking away at some point, some sort of mystical event that kind of whisked us all away to either some kind of another plane or another continent or whatever. We weren't sure. But then got shunted back and woke up in our beds. We're like, what happened? So that was pretty cool. That was very creepy of you, Chris. So, like I said, and it was funny too. For those of you, for the old school gamers in the crowd, Chris describes it as, when the mist started to roll in, and I'm like, no fucking way. No motherfucking way. Because in the old days, that was how you got to Ravenloft. Was all of a sudden you would just, the mists, the fog would roll in and surround you, and all of a sudden you were in the elemental plane of dread. And which was great. I mean, Ravenloft campaigns were really fun and cool and spooky. It's definitely the spookiest of the campaigns.
It's still one of the most popular campaign worlds,
settings,
campaign settings. Yeah,
I would say it rivals, probably Tal'Dorei is probably a close second, or right around there, since Critical Role became so popular.
I think Forgotten Realms is still up
Forgotten Realms is probably still the highest. But I would say probably Forgotten Realms, followed by Ravenloft, and then right underneath it, or maybe kind of neck and neck, Tal'Dorei.
I think Tal'Dorei is way behind, actually. Even with the popularity of Critical Role, I don't think a lot of people are playing in Tal'Dorei.
Man, those books sold out like crazy, though.
They did, but and I bought them, but I never plan on playing in Tal'Dorei. I just wanted them for the lore.
Right. But the first book, you can't find it. Like, it's it's sold out. And the second book, which was like basically the
official
plus, the official, yeah,
yes,
the rehash plus was, it's a great book too. It's so cool. It was, again, is also, I think you can buy it a little bit more so than the first one.
I think it's still available on D&D Beyond.
It might be, but it's I think, and it was published through Darrington Press too. So
no, the first one was through Darrington Press.
There's two were through Darrington Press, but then there is the official Tal'Dorei,
Expedition to Wildmount.
Right, that was the one that was the D&D official one. Isn't there a second one too?
What's that?
Wasn't there a second one too?
I don't think so. I think there was only one through WotC. Because I think they had a falling out with them right after that, or else they wanted to just put everything out through Darrington.
It was right when that book came out. It was right after, or right before the book came out, and then D&D Begone happened.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly. So it was like,
I'm sorry, Explorer's Guide to Wildmount.
Yes, Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. But there wasn't an adventure book, because Explorer's Guide to Wildmount is just a source book, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm looking. Critical Role, Call of the Netherdeep.
That was it. The Call of the Netherdeep is their adventure book.
Yeah,
that's an adventure camp. That's a camp adventure thing.
It's just an adventure. It's
right. But remember when adventures were the size of a magazine?
Yeah, now they're like size of a rule book.
Yeah. Now they're full hardcovers. Now, granted, they have a lot more material in them.
Most adventures. It used to be adventures were something you did. Right. And it would take maybe 4 or 5 play sessions to get through it.
Right.
At most. Now they're campaigns.
They're full campaigns, right?
This one will take characters from 1st through 13th level.
Yeah.
That's a career
or equivalent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then some people might retire their character, and then they might go on to something else, or they might go on to something else. or they continue the characters in other ways. Because I mean, the higher level campaigns do tend to be,
Well, that's
5 levels, not
and
you know
that's what
10.
my campaign that I set that adventure I created was to take you guys from 1st to 14th level.
Nope.
Technically
it.
from about 4th to 14th.
But you did too good of a job, Chris. There's too many questions.
Well, it's
There's
because
too many other things that
yeah.
we've created that we need to do and we want to do. So, yeah. I mean, I would really love to see when we do finally close off this campaign. I really would love to see a true, like, level 20 kind of epilogue for these characters. That they go off. They're like, well, we're not doing traditional adventuring anymore. Now, we're somebody's
and that's
heading
probably
up a school, or like Mark Harris he got married and is running his father's keep and whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's probably the kind of thing that'll happen. It'll be one of those where the characters will get semi-retired. We'll move on to something else, and then we'll take a break from that, and we'll go back and run like a couple shot with those characters, with the old characters again, to revisit them.
Yeah.
Once I've had time to figure out how the fuck you run any adventure with 7 level 20 characters.
Go up against some pretty fucking tough guys, which you do, I mean, that's what, and then it's honestly, that's what Matt and the gang from Critical Role have done with each of the campaigns. They've revisited Critical Role or Vox Machina, I think it was twice, which was really cool.
The Search for Grog, and then the Closet.
Yeah, which was the wedding, basically. It was really so good. Those were some of my favorite episodes, honestly.
I still haven't watched those because I'm still getting through Vox.
Right, the epilogues were so great, man. They were really great. And then, but then they did revisit. Finally, revisited the Mighty Nine, and it was actually in conjunction with Bell's Hells.
Yeah. Well, and and the thing is that in with them, the characters aren't 20th level when they stop playing. They come back and they're a couple levels higher. Like I think with Vox they were like 16 or something like that, and they came
when
back
they ended. It was right on 16.
Yeah, and then they came back and they were 18 for the next adventure.
Actually, because it really was. It might not even have been that. It might have been maybe 18. It wasn't that long after. Like,
well, the Search for Grog maybe not, but I think
but then Dalen's Closet,
I think they were like 18.
18.
They had leveled up a couple of times.
Yeah, but it really wasn't because it really wasn't that long after chronologically.
I thought it was a couple of years. It's supposed to be a couple of years.
It's like 2 years. It's really not that long. It's a couple years maybe. Long enough for people to kind of get situated and settled and stuff. And then with the Mighty Nine, the Mighty Nine is quite a few years later. It's and like
it's like 20 years or 30 years later.
20 years later, 30 years later, and then it's like 20 years later, and then
who's still on who's on the Council of Teldori?
Yeah, who's on the Council of Teldori?
Another one died.
Mighty Nine, excuse me, Hell's Bells is only like 7-8 years after the Mighty Nine. So when they start on Hell's Bells in campaign 3, when they start visiting, bringing in characters from Vox Machina, like Percy is like in his late 50s now at this point, and he's definitely an older guy. He's established. He's probably leveled up quite a bit, but he doesn't adventure anymore. But his lovely wife, who's half elven, she's still quite, she looks the same,
Percy dear, were we expecting a package?
Yeah. That shit was funny, honestly. Oh,
yeah. ACD.
Hey, buddy. So it and then more recently when they brought in the
okay, we're gonna leave that comment, CD. Well,
don't want to answer. I don't want to answer. But anyway, yeah, bringing in the Mighty Nine, it was interesting because they were. I think they didn't end the Mighty Nine didn't end at 20th level either. I think
Nope.
they were like 17 or 18,
I
maybe.
think so.
And so when they brought them in for this follow up, they were like 20th level. But it was really cool to see Bo and Yasha have established their, like Yasha's basically a housewife, and but she's kind of bored, and Caleb is, doing a lot of work with the Cobalt Soul, the
Cobalt. Well, the Cobalt Soul
No.
is where.
Bo. He was working with Bo a lot.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
Cobalt Soul.
Right. So he was working. He's not part of it, but I think he was also working at the school. He was a professor, and not what was Not's name after she
Veth.
Veth and her husband became were running a camp. They were doing the whole camp thing that she had established, and it was really cool. But what I loved too was that Veth was like, I can't go. I've got the kids. I can't do all, and everything. And everybody's like, well, what's fucking Sam gonna do then? So Sam ends up playing Veth's son, who they had established. And it was, but because the timey-wimey, it was a little weird. It was establishing exactly how old the kid was. The kid, they were like, is he 12? Is he 14? Is he whatever. And then, but he obviously wasn't like a 20th level character, so they had to spend I don't even watch this yet, but they did have to spend a whole lot of time like making sure he was okay, because he basically jumped into the teleportation portal or whatever at the last minute, carrying his mom's shit, and he runs in, and they were all like, they got to protect him because it's Uncle, Caleb and Auntie Bo and Auntie Yasha and stuff, and they're like, but it was so much fun,
Yeah, I'm back to watching Bell's Hells. I just started 26.
Okay, you're still very.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a while, man, because they've broken 100 now. I think they're 101. And if you look at most of the campaigns go about 120 episodes or so.
130 to 140.
Is that it?
Yep.
I think some of those, but that's the thing. I think if some of those, if you look at the
Vox
number,
was 142, I think, something like that.
well, that's the thing though. Some of those were one shots that didn't feature those characters. Like if you look at, most of them. I mean, there's like maybe like 10 in the Vox Machina.
Oh, I haven't hit one yet. Then that must be late.
Was that it? Because I know there were a number of ones in the Mighty Nine where they did a holiday episode, or they did this.
Yeah, but those don't count as episodes.
They don't count as actual episodes, but if you pull them up on YouTube, they're still in that particular campaign, so it counts as like, in that season, basically. So yeah, I don't
right,
count
but
them
they have them where they're like campaign 3. They're on 102, by the way. That's the one I'm seeing on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
I
just finished 90. I have to do 90. I'm on 91.
Let's see. I know they've got them all. Let's see.
But we could potentially, at 101, see the end of Bell's Hells within the year. Not within like a year from now.
Yeah.
So they won't finish it before 25, but we'll probably see the end of Bell's Hells in 25. So
let's see. 115 episodes according to this, in campaign 1.
Yeah. Like I said, it did have a bunch of, because that's the thing. I mean, if you look at all the
campaign 2 was 141. That's what it was.
If you look at all the episodes associated with campaign 1, some of those were like, there was like a video. One video, there were a few of them in there that were just shopping episodes. Like, are they or an episode where they just unboxed a bunch of gifts that came to them, Christmas. or things like that. So I don't know. I mean, some of the, but so anyway, I doubt that we'll see the end of Bell's Hells before the
Well, the
year's
other
out.
thing is that, oh, hey, Wings. The other thing
Yes.
with Vox is that campaign started before they started streaming,
Correct.
whereas these other two have not.
I think they were level 6 when they started at
Yeah, something like that, 6 or 7.
and when they started at the Craghammer adventure.
Mhm.
I actually watched, they did a Q&A at Popverse. It was one of the cons down in Florida, and like the whole group was there, the whole Vox Mock, well, the whole Critical Role team, and that's just got to be expensive, man. Get that entire group there. And they were, they took questions from the audience and stuff. And one person spoke up. There were some really cool questions, but one was like, when are we going to have an adventure that goes back to Craghammer? And Matt was like, oh yeah, that would be cool. And they had actually said that there's a great deal of underrepresentation of dwarves in Critical Role. And dwarves are Matt's favorite, like race to play. He likes playing dwarves, and but they've never had a dwarven member of any of the regular.
Yeah,
the
Matt's had
regular
dwarven
shows.
NPCs.
Right? But there's never been a dwarven member of any of the team. There have been dwarven guest stars. He played a dwarf when he did the Exandria Unlimited.
Keg was a dwarf.
Pardon?
Keg was a dwarf.
Yeah, the person that came in and played, she was the one that played, was there when
She was the reason Molly got killed.
Right, yeah. So there have definitely been NPCs and stuff, but there haven't been any actual members of that. So might be interesting to see if somebody plays a dwarf next time around. We have diverged. But anyways, my week was, it was okay. One of the things I feel like I feel bad because I only have like 1 weekend left until Ren Fair starts, and coming up this weekend, and then we start. And I was trying to get some kind of like chilling done this weekend. I wanted to just kind of I'm just gonna chill and relax. But
Netflix
I also
and chill.
Well, video game and chill, something. I just wanted to maybe just kind of relax because I know for the next few weeks after that, for the next 2 months, I'm going to be swamped. And it's always
your busy season.
It is crazy busy. And then after festival gets out, we get into October, and I'm not, because of Theater Bazaar not being around, I'm going to find some other things to do. But I'm just going to be just ramping up at work. I'm going to be really busy. But I still want to have productive, lazy time.
See,
I don't want to just sit on my phone and fuck off on my phone. I want to, at least if I'm going to have relaxation, I want to have it be productive relaxation. So I want to play a video game that I'm working on and get to the next section or levels or whatever, or I want to get my comic book, get some bunch of comic books read, or get this kind of thing. And I found out on Saturday I got up late and I just picked up my phone and fell into a fucking hole in my phone for 2 hours, and I was like, what time is it? Holy fuck, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. What the fuck? What happened? Where? And then you're like, you got to find something to do. I hate unproductive relaxation. You know what I mean? It's and it doesn't have to be chores, but it can still,
That is Renee yells at me about this all the time because I do that same thing. And she's like, that is a product of American upbringing. We are taught that if we are not productive, she said it's called drama. If we are taught from a young age that if we are not constantly productive, we're worthless.
Right. Yes.
You always have to be productive, and that's not the case.
It's almost like Catholic guilt.
Yeah.
It's it's bred into us. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. She said you're allowed to rest.
It is okay to fuck off. It is okay to have a day where you're just I'm doing absolutely nothing.
It's okay to have multiple days like that.
Right. Absolutely. I might watch some TV. I might cook a little bit. I might just sit on my phone and jerk off. Who knows? I mean, it's just whatever you want to do. It's okay. How you spend your time is up to you. I still feel like, because I mean, like, I spend money on these things. I buy books, I buy movies, I buy video games, comic books, and I don't.
I pay for every streaming service
Right, I
under
have
the
so
sun.
many, almost every streaming services. I do have Shudder. I don't think I have.
No, I don't
really
have
do
Shudder.
But
I'm
it's
not
like,
a horror guy.
not a big
so-
horror guy, right? So, it's one of those things where, like, I still feel bad though that I've spent money on these things that I'm not at least watching. I'm not doing, whatever. I've got 8 video games sitting on my shelf on my PlayStation that I haven't touched. One of them is Spider-Man 2, and I haven't opened it up because I'm like,
Well,
waiting on that.
And so that's the thing. It's like I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a new game because I kind of want to start something new. I'm kind of bored with the games that I'm playing.
You haven't finished a bunch of the games that you've been playing.
No, I really need to finish Baldur's Gate 3. I'm so close to finishing it.
You really do.
But I do need to finish it. But I was like, maybe I'll get like, I want one for my PlayStation. And Spider-Man's okay, but I'm kind of over the whole swinging through the town and stuff.
Man, I've heard Spider-Man 2 though, as good as Spider-Man 1 and Morales was, Spider-Man 2 is like exponentially better too.
Yeah, Ray said that's ADHD. And that's true. You start things and you don't finish them. That you stick with them and you hyper focus on them as long as they're interesting, and as soon as you don't find them interesting anymore, you move on to something else.
Right.
Dopamine gone, move on to the next thing. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get like God of War or something like that, because I really like the original God of War game.
And the new,
I've heard great things about the new one. CD's raved about it.
Oh, it's so good, dude.
And the so I was looking at that, and then I realized, oh wait, no, let's put a pause on that, because in 3 weeks, a little over 3.5 weeks, Star Wars Outlaws comes on, and that will probably consume my life for a while.
I'm hearing really good things.
I've heard bad things and
Really?
good things. I've heard mix.
I've heard a bunch of good things, and
I've heard it's really pretty.
Yes.
But that one, it is all sneaking, which I don't have a problem with. They said the entire game is pretty much based on your ability to sneak, because you don't have any powers, and
you're not a Jedi,
right? And a couple of hits from a laser pistol will take you out.
Okay.
And then you might have to redo 10-15 minutes of gameplay, which that's going to be one of the things that will piss me off, is if it's like the
if it has like a save point.
Yeah, if it has save points, like checkpoints, and you can't save anywhere along those checkpoints.
Most
I
open
hate
world
those
games don't, but that's the thing. This is an open world game, and most open world games do not have like save points. Like
Right.
that. Most open world games, you can save anywhere.
Yep.
And you have a lot of auto save. So that's, that there's that. I've been playing
I've heard your little companion's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can send the little axolotl looking thing up and to distract guards and.
Okay, this is a big deal, man. This is the first truly open, like, open world Star Wars game, and the fact that it doesn't feature like any of the. I mean, there's been a number of Star Wars.
You're a smuggler.
That didn't feature like the Skywalker clan, but yeah, it's one of the first times you're not playing a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
If anything. So I actually got
Jedi or a Sith,
because
the Force Unleashed, you were a Sith,
right? For free, I actually got Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were free giveaways, I think, for Amazon Prime or something like that. So I have both of those on my computer at the moment.
I have those. I started playing it. Oh my God!
I never played them because I think at the time
I played the original.
At the time, it was only available on Xbox. It was not available on PlayStation.
I played it on PlayStation.
Was it?
Yeah.
Or if it was one of those that came late or something. I don't know. Because I do remember, I think it was like an exclusive for a while. I could be mistaken though. So anyway, it's this could be a big deal. It's on my list. I'm willing to give it a shot. I mean, unfortunately, the last 2 Star Wars ones, were a bit lackluster. The what was the previous one was Star Wars Jedi Fallen
Fallen Order,
and then the sequel to that, which came out like last year,
which I didn't even bother with.
it hasn't been doing great. I mean, it sold. It's a Star Wars game, so it's going to sell, but it didn't do fantastic.
Mhm.
You know, I was surprised when I
But-
noticed it had been discounted already. You know?
But we got distracted again, and
We did. What are you drinking?
So I am drinking a beer that I've had sitting around for quite a while. I decided with a beautiful day like this, where it's kind of fall like, I was going to go with a more fall like beer, and I actually almost went with s'mores, but instead I went with the Dragon's Milk Reserve Maple Oak.
All right.
This is one. It is bourbon and maple syrup barrel aged stout. This is kind of their answer to CBS, I think, the Canadian Breakfast Stout from Founders, where it's bourbon barrel aged stout with maple syrup and stuff. Although that one I think it's actually aged in a bourbon barrel that then had maple syrup in it, which this one might have been too. But this one, it is dark, and yes, CD. This is this is from 2019, so this is 5 years old.
Jesus.
It is an 11% ABV. It still has the clear dragon's milk aroma. It smells boozy. It's got you get the barrel and the bourbon smell off of it. And take a little sip. This has maintained its flavor profile tremendously. For a 5-year-old beer, it's held up great. I think it's gotten a little bit smoother. It's got a kind of a creamy mouthfeel. The maple comes through as a little hint of maple, and but it's still got all the other characteristics of the Dragon's Milk Stout. It's actually really good. I thought this was pretty good when I had it when it first came out. I think this is my last bottle of it. And this is, after 5 years, tremendous. I will give this, in its current state, I'd give this 5 out of 5. This is
really,
yeah. This is
rare
this is
that you actually give a 5 out of 5.
It's absolutely delicious. It's so nice and smooth. It is a little sweet. Yeah, at most I might take a quarter point off for the excessive sweetness, but that's the way that this stout is, because it is a higher
because
ABV.
I usually give you shit about like just being very like quite often you're when you review stuff you're like you rarely give things low marks, but you also very rarely give all 5 stars. Like I think I could maybe count on one hand the number of times you've done like a 5-star rating on something. Most of the time, most of the time it's like 4.5, maybe 3 4/4, or 3 3/4. You know.
Yeah, this is like dessert in a glass right now. It's so good. Right. It's also very chocolatey. It's got a lot of chocolate notes. So, what about you? Was that Pepsi I saw?
Just doing a Pepsi tonight. Yeah.
A little poopsy.
Not really down for.
I think somebody's coming to taste this.
Oh, somebody has like, ooh, that sounds tasty.
But yeah. Yep. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, she came up to try it. She said yum. Yeah, it is. It's definitely a sipper, CD. It's just a sit back and sip on this for a while. All right, CD's got Juicy Monkey from Victory Brewing. I am not a fan of Victory. Double IPA, 9.5%, 3.5 out of 5. Juicy floral, but bitter metallic aftertaste, maybe from alcohol. You know, I don't know that I've ever had anything I liked from Victory. I got a nut brown ale from them once that every single bottle in the 6-pack self-decanted. It was continuing to ferment. It tasted horrid. And I've had some of their other stuff that I've just everything I've had, at most it might be a 3.5. There's never been anything that has just really blown me away with them. They're at best an average brewery, I think, from what I've had.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. So let's get into some stuff.
Cool.
Big political news today.
Yes, big political
we'll talk about that real quick. We're not going to dwell on it.
No.
But Walz, the governor from Minnesota, was named as Kamala Harris's running mate. So now it's the Harris-Walz ticket.
Right.
Seems like it's going to be a good pick. I really thought it was going to be Shapiro, but
right. He's very progressive, but people have said some good things about him. Of course,
he's supposedly really personable, and he's the one that coined the term "weird" for
he was the one
for JD Vance.
Why are they calling it? He's weird. Called Trump weird, and Trump immediately was like, "Weird!" Like he took umbrage to it. He was like, "I'm not weird. You're weird." You know, It was one of those things. It was really hilarious. It's like the Donald Trump and the Donald Trump of the Trumpettes. The Trumpers are and the MAGA crowd are really having a tough time finding like viable things like to make fun of these people for or to call them out for, because Kamala, I mean, she's got a weird laugh. What the fuck? Fuck off with the weird,
Well, yeah, CD, you're right. He is.
She's black. She's a woman. Oh my god.
Well, she's black now.
Yeah, she's black now. She used to be an Indian.
Yeah. Somebody should look into that.
Somebody should look into that.
You're right, CD. Walz is the most progressive of the selections, and he is a really good speaker from what I've heard. I haven't heard him talk a whole lot.
He's a veteran.
He's a veteran. He's got
a former teacher.
Yeah, a former coach. Yes, he's got a lot going for him. And people are saying now, they're like, oh, I can't wait for the vice presidential debate now.
Yeah.
but he's also just supposedly just like a super nice guy.
Seems really cool. I saw like a quick hit.
Renee said he used to be a Republican, didn't like the way the party was going.
Oh, interesting. Okay. He used to be like I said, he's a veteran of the National Guard, so he didn't like go to Vietnam or anything. He's a little too young for Vietnam anyway, but he taught high school for like 10 years. And some people were saying, well,
He was a civics teacher.
Oh, wow, cool. And then he was also a coach. He was a football coach. And people have remarked that he's only a year older than Kamala, but looks...
he looks like a grandpa.
He does. He looks like, well, he's 61. He's obviously old enough to be a grandpa. But he looks a lot older. And yeah, I know.
As the guy who
I'm old enough. We are both old enough to be grandfathers.
I am a grandpa. I have a 4-year-old granddaughter.
But anyway,
love you, Kenna.
I guess he goes, I taught high school for 10 years. Those kids will age you. So it was essentially that, but I think, from what I've seen so far, he seems like a decent pick. He's a good pick. He's, we'll see. I think, from what I've seen, Kamala is climbing the polls, so to speak. She's doing, polling is,
it's still 50-50 right now is for all the polls that they're showing.
I heard actually she hit like 51. She's just starting to edge over Donald Trump, but
the last ones I saw were yesterday. But I don't want to dwell on that. I don't want to get sucked into a political debate again. So
still something that I'm glad it was worth mentioning.
Yep.
So go ahead.
I was just going to start off something real quick. Some bad news in my opinion. From what I've heard, officially the Lando Calrissian show that was planned for Disney has been shelved.
Okay.
That they will not be doing it.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that. I thought that would be a really good thing. And honestly, I still think that the best idea would be to do it with
like a flashback.
Well, like Billy D. Williams starting off talking about something and saying, well, let me tell you this story. And then it fade out and go to Donald Glover playing Lando for the whole thing. And then at the end, go back to Billy D. Williams. Like at a sabacc table or something like that. I think that would have been the best way to do that. whether it would be a show or a movie or whatever.
No, I like it. I mean, we've just talked about this before. I think it would make a fucking great time. I think Glover did a great job. He was one of the best parts of Solo,
I think he was the best part of Solo,
if not the best part. Well, younger Chewie was fun. Also the droid that he ended up having to upload into the Falcon was really entertaining.
That was an interesting way of explaining that.
Yeah, but
my thing is that I don't. I'm kind of over the everyone needs a droid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of over that. I've kind of been over it, really.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Because even in the Acolyte, there's a droid. It's not as big a part, but there is a droid.
So anyway, I mean, I liked Solo. I thought it was okay. It wasn't the greatest. It wasn't Rogue One, but it was a good time, And
dude, it wasn't even close to Rogue One.
No, but Donald Glover was fantastic as
I'm not sure I'd put Solo above any of the prequels.
Oh, I would.
It was a decent heist movie. I just didn't think it was a great Solo movie.
I would put it over the prequels, but I would not put it over the postquels.
Oh, so yeah, and I would put it over the postquels.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really don't like them.
I know you don't, Chris. You've made it abundantly clear, particularly the second one, that you do not like.
The second and third one, actually. I don't like either of them.
Well, the first one was good because it ultimately was one of those things that just really, it plucked on the nostalgia strings and kept us going with that.
Well, it's because it was completely an homage, aka remake of New Hope.
New Hope, yeah, like I said, it played the
just with a bigger Death Star.
Right, it played the nostalgia card extremely well. And I mean, I wept at the end of it. I wept because I was overwhelmed with the emotions of the fact that I was an 8-year-old sitting in the theater again watching Star Wars. It was just like,
one of my other problems that I had with it was they didn't do a good enough job of explaining where the universe was at that point. Mm-hmm. They're like, it's 30 years later, and now they're the rebellion again. Mm-hmm. It's just all of a sudden they're the whatever, the new order has come in, and it's like, where the fuck did they come from? They gave no background on what happened. Yeah.
Where did they come? I thought the Empire was quashed at this point. Why do we still have these outlying?
Yeah, 30 years later,
years later, we still have this guy, this Snoke guy that's out here. Who the fuck is this guy? Yeah, that was one of the problems I had. I would have thought that. I mean, hell, you watch like the Mandalorian and the stuff that grew out of that, and you're seeing what was it, Empire rehabilitation programs and stuff, like these former Imperial officers that are in these rehab programs, and they, I mean, and the Empire had existed for quite a while at that point. There's been
it was in place for about 25 years.
Right, long enough for younger people to have lived the majority of their lives under the rule of the Empire. To be grown up, to have grown up under the propaganda of the Empire. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them were completely brainwashed, and all of a sudden these rebels come in and they wreck their way of life, and now they've got to try and find out how, their way in this new kind of system. You can understand. I totally understand.
Hey, Ochipo.
Hey, Jibo.
And
I could certainly understand a certain level of fucked upness,
Yeah. Well, and you're right, Renee. The original Star Wars movies were actually about the droids. They were the droid story. And that continued when he did the prequels. The droids are the one constant throughout the entire thing. Absolutely. It's actually the droids story.
R2 specifically.
Yes.
R2 specifically. 3PO came a little later, but R2 was at the very beginning.
Well, yeah. I mean, I didn't care for that R2 was actually Amidala's droid. I think that was a stretch. But and I think that having Anakin be the one that created C-3PO was fucking bullshit. But but still,
wasn't R2 the droid for the captain of?
it was a droid on the Queen's yacht.
Yes. Something of that nature, yeah.
It was one of many astromech droids.
And she was and the thing about R2 is that periodically they would wipe the memories of
all droids.
Of all droids, right. And R2 was one of those they never did that.
Yep. That's why he had such a personality.
That's why he had such a personality. That's why he was such a strong personality, because he,
it's also why it's one of the reasons why the Falcon's computer is also has such a personality.
Exactly. And I think 3PO probably never, I mean, for quite a while anyway, didn't have his memory wiped either. So that's why when you think about it, it makes sense. These AI, they're basically they are artificial intelligences that continue to grow and continue to develop over with time. And if you don't periodically wipe that memory and they got to start over, you're going to get
they might get quirks if they
I might get quirky.
But yeah, C-3PO developed anxiety. No, I think C-3PO was programmed with anxiety.
Yeah. Sure. All right.
What you got? What do you want to go to next?
Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon?
Sure.
So House of the Dragon, they just finished their second season.
Yep.
Third
and
season,
I am like on the 4th or 5th episode, I think, right now.
Third season is scheduled to start filming in early 25.
So it'll be out in 26.
We might we could see season 3 at the end of 25, like I'd say. I mean, because if they can get principal photography done in 3 months, which is generally about what they do for a show, even the show's seasons the seasons are only 8 episodes. They're long out. I mean, they're usually a little over an hour, and they're pretty big deals. But I'm guessing they should be able to get that done in about 3 to 6 months. If they can do that, and then continue to, as they're filming, to also work on the VFX shots that come afterwards. My guess is that we could possibly see it at the end of 25. If not, then maybe early 26. We can't talk about, because the show had its final episode on Sunday. Actually, its final episode got leaked, and a lot of people saw it early. Yeah, it got leaked, and there were a lot of people saw it early. I chose not to try and watch it early. I watched it on Sunday, Stella and I. And you haven't watched it, so we can't really talk about it.
No, I just looked. I'm on episode 5, so okay. I got 4 more to go. I'm halfway through.
I will say it's a cool. Cool.
So is that what Ojipo's saying such bullshit about?
Well, it's very cliffhanger. So I mean,
well, and they're saying too that it's going to end in season 4. That season 4 will be its last season.
Correct. I do like some of these shows.
The fact that it takes them 2 years to get a season out, though, I mean, that's still 4 years away before we see the end of this.
2.5, maybe 2.5, maybe 5. I don't know. We'll see. My guess, I as much as I like these shows, as much as I've been enjoying them and everything, and as much as I often don't want them to end, I do kind of like the idea that these writers have a end game in mind. They're like, nope, this is the end of the show. We've told the story. These are the amount of seasons we're going to have.
Ted Lasso,
exactly.
3 seasons.
Like, Babylon 5 had a 5-year.
Yeah, but that got fucked up. And
it did.
And he didn't get to really tell the 5-year plan because he had to cut it short because they thought they were done at 4, and then he had to make up something for 5.
Yeah. And then they had like the spin-off shows that didn't last very long.
Yeah, Rangers and Crusade. Well, Crusade was a movie, I think.
No, I think Crusade was a show. Maybe
Was it?
I don't know. I can't remember. It's been so fucking long.
They had like a couple movies and a show or two
Mhm.
after a
They
spin-off show
just
or two.
recently had an animated thing too.
Did they?
Brought back a lot of the old actors to reprise their roles in animation and stuff. So, but I do like okay, we've got this plan and it will end. This is where it ends. So now some shows like The Rookie or Law and Order SVU, those can continue in perpetuity. You can, characters can come and go and you can whatever. But I kind of am liking some of these shows. We're like, nope, this is where we're gonna end it. We're gonna end it where we want to end it at. Like The Boys is gonna have season. It's gonna end at season 5.
Well, and we can that leads right into Umbrella Academy, which comes out on Thursday, which this is their 5th and final season.
Is it their 5th season?
I think so. Maybe it's their 4th.
No, I think it's their 4th season. But
it is their final season.
It is their final season, which I also like. I'm like, okay, cool. Go out on top. It's one of the higher rated shows.
Well, it's telling the story that they wanted to tell, and
Right.
This is where it's going to end. They're done with telling that story.
Exactly. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's do it.
Yeah, CD said he loves Umbrella. So different, even if it doesn't make sense.
Agreed. It's
very timey-wimey, alternate dimension-y now.
Yeah, exactly. Create desktop. I've already got it. That's weird. I just pulled up my Netflix app on my computer, and it's like it already has a weird, like a pin Netflix. No thanks. I like I said, really digging that whole thing. It's really
cool. I'm looking forward to it. I really do enjoy the Umbrella Academy. I think it's one of the better shows that are out there. I like the way the characters interact. They feel like a family.
Yeah.
The way that they argue and bicker with each other, and
very much.
And I like the way that they handled what's his name's transition on the show.
Elliot Page.
Yeah, Elliot Page.
Yeah, I gotta admit, as much as I'm not, as much as I was like, those kinds of changes are kind of like, man, what the hell, they handled it very well, I don't have any particular problem with like when they write in, I guess it depends if they do a racial or gender swap on a character, if it's done well or if it makes sense.
Which we're gonna get into that later.
Yeah, we are gonna get that in a little bit.
But yeah, so Jeepo, I like Klaus. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
5 is also one of my favorites.
Yeah.
That kid is.
Dude, that guy
I want to see his career just take off because he's
a unbelievably good actor. Really, really well done. Really incredibly good actor. Surprisingly good actor.
Klaus, who, spoiler, can't die.
Really, really cool. So yeah, like I said, The Boys is ending at 7, or at 5 seasons. It was actually in a interview, Kirkman, who Robert Kirkman, who wrote and created The Walking Dead and also created Invincible. He had stated that he would like the Invincible cartoon. It has been renewed for season 4. Season 3 hasn't come out yet, but it has been renewed for season 4, and there is a rumor that it's already been renewed for season 5. That he would like to see it go to like 7 or 8. I think he had said he would. He feels like he needs 7 or like upwards to season 7 or 8 to be able to fully tell the story that he wants to tell, or the adaptation. And I'm like, that sounds about right for somebody who has read every single comic and adored it. That sounds about right to have that 7 or 8 seasons for this show. But anyway, yeah. So good stuff, Maynard. It's I personally find House of the Dragon to be excellent. like it is. I wasn't certain about it at first. Then like about the first third of the first season, I was kind of like, I don't know. And then it really started to hook me. It's a lot more political. I think there's a lot of more political maneuvering in this show than
It
there was on Game of Thrones.
there's not
Game
as
of
much
Thrones,
of big character deaths that I've seen.
yeah, and Game of Thrones still also had like, besides just like who's going to be king, it was, or who's going to be on the Iron Throne, all this other thing. It didn't come down to like two factions. So it was, this person has a claim and that person has a claim and these people, and then then the overreaching kind of thing of winter is coming, and with the White Walkers, and there's this shit over here with
Aegon's Dream,
Daenerys, and and Khal Drogo and the dragons, and it was just
well,
there
and
was
traveling to the other continent even.
there was so much. It was almost, there was so much. This show is really centered more on Rhaenyra's claim and and the other claim. There's just like, we have two factions instead of like 16 all vying.
The Greens versus the Reds.
Right. I thought it was black.
No, it's Reds. It's
Black?
Greens and Reds.
I've just heard Team Black, people saying Team Black and Team Green.
It's green
or
and red.
something.
I just watched one the other day, and they talk about the Greens and the Reds. They've sworn for the green. They've sworn for the red.
All right. Well, I guess the Targaryens do have the red multi-headed dragon on there.
Yeah, Rhaenyra is the red, and the Hightowers are the green.
Greens, right? Okay. I'm digging. I mean, like I said, it's really great. I was bummed that there was so much. I mean, like I said, we can't talk too much about the finale because you haven't watched it. I was bummed that it gave me that end of season. What was the best of both worlds? Was that end of season 3 or end of season?
Yes, yeah. With Locutus,
it gave me the whole end of season 3 on Star Trek: The Next Generation kind of vibe.
Fire.
Yeah, when you're like,
Black.
Shit, now we gotta wait. It not quite like that. It wasn't quite.
3 months, which seemed like an eternity back then.
Back then, it was. It seemed like an eternity. Now for this, we gotta, minimum a year that we're gonna have to wait. So it's just like,
probably more like a year and a half.
Yeah, like I said, minimum, maybe about a year. Like I said, if they start in January and they get everything shot in 3
and
to
there's
6
no
months,
strikes.
There's no strikes or anything.
No pandemics.
We get, the nice thing about this show and that kind of thing is the sets are built, the costumes are made. They'll need to make more, but they have a big stock. And the special effects are built. They just have to adapt them. The dragons are all made and everything. They just kind of got to do it. So they don't got to build it from the ground up. Not each season has to be built from the ground up. It's kind of like making a sequel to a video game using the same engine, just 6 months later, a year later. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Speaking of video games, the 1 year anniversary of Baldur's Gate happened, I believe it was last week.
Yes.
So another reason for you to finish your first playthrough. I need to get back to my second playthrough. But I've been spending, like I said, a lot of time on
actually, it was 3 days ago.
Was it 3 days ago? Like I said, I've been spending a crap ton of time on Starfield, and that's why I've been maybe a little distracted with that. Really enjoying Starfield, but I think I am going to take a little bit of a break and get back to playing Baldur's Gate, because that's the thing. Because I have played it already once, I can, speed through it a little bit. I'm not figuring things out. I'm basically remembering, oh, that's how I did this, and I want to do it a little bit different this time. Baldur's Gate 3's director promises something shiny, something big for Larian's next RPG. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I think you're going to like it. That's what he's been saying. Because they did basically say, we made an amazing video game for Dungeons and Dragons. We're moving on.
Yep.
And so even though people were like, please make some DLC, make something, like, continue it. I still feel like, it almost feels like Larian is like, all right, well, maybe we'll make some later, or whatever. They just don't, they want to leave. They definitely want to leave us wanting more.
Well, they do, and they don't want. They're like, why mess with success? We
Right.
had a great launch. We had a great game. Everyone loves it. Everyone has been raving about it. Why take the chance on fucking something up?
Right. And one of the things he had said that they had said is like, the DLC would probably be continuing your character into, because the game ends at level 12.
Yep.
Continuing your character into the higher levels. And he did say, like, kind of one of the things that you've talked about is creating gaming for the higher levels is very difficult, and that it would make it would be very difficult to do this. Now Sven Vinke did say, he said something big. He's got something pretty big, and he did say he goes, you have no idea how much energy developers like us take from feedback from the fans. So they really do appreciate, and they do take a lot of that into account. And he said, let's see, we're going to take all that energy and convert it into something new, shiny, and big. And we still know, everybody still knows very little about either of the two RPGs that Larian is working on, but that this isn't the first time Vinke has teased the size of the studio's next project. In a recent interview with PC Gamer, actually, he noted that technology Larian had built up through Baldur's Gate 3 and its Divinity games, which I've played the second one, which is really, really good, was designed to make big games. So they're utilizing what they've learned to make the next really big game. So I'm guessing their next game is going to be monumental. I wouldn't be surprised if it might even be licensed for something else that people really adore. He had also teased that that they did have, before they canned it, they did have playable versions of Baldur's Gate 3 DLC and the beginnings of Baldur's Gate 4. But then they went, never mind. And it's just like, oh, son of a bitch. Really?
Yeah, they're going to tease that?
Tease that. Thanks, man.
Fuck you very much.
And he's like, there's something you all would have liked. And the end note on this article is like, talk about salt in the wound.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I would give him
That's a fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't tease that. You just leave that to yourself.
Another little kind of thing. We're still on a although I've seen a crap ton of spoilers for Deadpool, and
so we wait one more week.
We're gonna wait one more week before we do a full on thing. But it is common knowledge that there were a bunch of cameos in the movie from other Marvel movies, and Ryan
Reynolds' family and
all kinds of one of them that was floated but didn't happen was that they had talked to Nick Cage about coming back and being Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider from his previous two Marvel movies, the Ghost Rider movies. There was conversation about it, and apparently all of the cameos that happened, they started with a phone call from Ryan Reynolds.
Of course.
Like, they all started that way. They were like, we had a list of like 70 characters that we were like thinking, oh, maybe we could bring back as cameos. And they all pretty much started with him with Ryan Reynolds calling up whoever and being like, hey, I got this great idea. Wouldn't it be awesome if? And then bringing these characters back into the thing. So, apparently Nicolas Cage, and he was down for it. He was like, yeah, let's make it happen. Let's see what. But apparently, they for whatever reason it fell up. They weren't able to make it happen. It was either a scheduling issue, or they just weren't able to make it happen, which is kind of a bummer. It would have been kind of funny to see him again as Johnny Blaze, particularly like from things like when they showed basically the cameo of a computer generated cameo of him as Superman from the whole rumored
Yeah.
multiversal thing in the Flash. Nick Cage is currently working on he's in the horror sensation Longlegs, which is a brand new horror movie that came out I think last week or the week before, and it's killing the chart. They're calling it one of the best new scary like horror movies to come out in quite a while. And he plays the horror monster guy basically, so we're saying some really good things. I don't know a whole lot about that movie yet, but yeah, they're saying that his performance in it is bone-chillingly scary. But next year, he'll be swinging into action in the near future and a live-action version of Spider-Man Noir, his character that he did from the Spider-Man animated films, the Into the Spider-Verse. So I'm really intrigued about that. And it's going to Amazon, which is another thing that it's now titled, it's titled Noir. It's heading to Amazon Prime. And Brendan Gleeson is going to play a villain in the show. It's an aging and down on his luck private investigator in the 30s New York who is forced to grapple with his past life as the city's one and only superhero. So they're doing it a little different from the comic, the Elseworlds comic, the What If comic that Marvel had created for that, or the alternate universe Spider-Man. So it should be playing him older. It should be interesting to see that how. It's not going to be just Spider-Man Noir. He's going to be like an aging Peter Parker or whatever, and who's now a detective. So it should, and but because that's the thing, Spider-Man Noir was in a universe where the aesthetic of the universe was a noir aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, could be cool. And Nick Cage is a great actor for superhero movies because he loves comic books. He really, truly loves comic books. So he's the kind of guy that really will treat it and take it seriously.
Unless it does something he doesn't agree with, and then he wants to change it.
But still, because he's weird. That's more that because he's just fucking strange. But I do really like the fact I usually will lean into the creator, the artist, the director that at least knows the source material. I'm like, all right, this person at least reads the comics and they have some understanding of what's going on here. So
to get into that too, I saw some stuff, not directly with Nick Cage, but Bruckheimer is talking again about National Treasure 3.
Really?
Yes, that supposedly there is a script, and that it's going to be focused more on Riley Poole. It will bring in a couple characters from the short-lived TV show. And that they want Nicolas Cage to come back, but he keeps saying no, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. There's no way they're going to make a National Treasure 3. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. Bruckheimer says different. But and the way that it's sounding is they want him back, and they're hopeful he'll come back, and they've got it written so because with him in it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he is critical for them to be in it, or for him to be in it, for them to actually do it. Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, CD, I've never heard of Nicolas Cage turning down a movie. I've seen some of the shit he's made. The man doesn't. He needs a new driveway, or he wants to buy a new car or something. A lot of
it came down to taxes.
Yeah. And that's what CD just said. He said his taxes paid off.
He had a lot of taxes that he had to pay, and back taxes. He also got screwed, and he got robbed. He got screwed over by a money manager, and I guess put another place besides wrestling. Yeah. So he, yeah, their powers once they realize. Sorry, I'm just getting caught up a little bit here. Okay. Yeah, Wesley Snipes was another actor that did that kind of thing too. He took on a bunch of different movie roles over the years because he owed a lot of back taxes.
Yeah,
and got in trouble. He had to go to jail for a while because of his back taxes.
But yeah, Bruckheimer says there is a script, and he hopes Nick will join in.
Well, we'll see. He's usually one to kind of like if he's
That-
down, he's down. You know.
The second one was so bad. The first one I loved. I loved the first National Treasure.
I did finally see both of them. I think.
The second one, that just no. Aztec shit inside the Mount Rushmore. Just no.
The second one was garbage. What about the Mummy? The Mummy movies have this like precious memory for me because Brendan Fraser is so much fun. The first one was great. The second one was pretty good. The second one was pretty good.
What's funny is I've heard that the Mummy movie is where a lot of people realized they were bi.
Yeah. It was a bisexual awakening for a lot of people because of all the hot that was in it.
Between Brendan Fraser and the guy, the one dude with the face makeup.
Oded Fair.
Yeah. And Rachel Weisz.
He was on Discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rachel Weisz.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then you got Anouk Cinnamon and you know, I mean, all those characters. The second one was good. The third one, which is where they brought in like they actually Rachel Weisz had been replaced. Not as good. She couldn't come in, and Maria Bello played it. She did the best she could. I like Maria Bello, but not as good. They went to the Far East, and it was a whole different mummy character essentially. Brendan Fraser has actually said he would be more than happy to come back and play Rick. I can't remember this.
I don't remember the names.
To play the main character again. He was like, I mean, we'd have to make allowances for, you know, my years, my age and everything. But he goes, he had so much fun. He goes playing that character and then being able to come back and do the sequel. It was almost like, I mean, they came back to a lot of the same people, a lot of the same production people. They went overseas, and I mean, he talks about like
his character was
camel
great.
guy, you know. Yeah,
Rick O'Connell,
that was it. Yeah, he was really great. The second one was good. The third, it was a little disappointing, but it was still all right, you know.
So,
yeah.
But back to Deadpool and Wolverine real quick.
Okay.
One thing that it's not a spoiler. But we can talk about it. It is now officially the highest grossing R-rated movie domestically of all time.
Is on track to be internationally the highest.
Yeah, right. It's made $395+ million domestically, and 824 plus million globally.
Wow. It's almost at that $1 billion mark, man. It's crazy. It topped out Passion of the Christ. Passion of the Christ was the highest, like I read just the other day that it was the highest grossing domestic or something like that.
You know what I say to that?
R-rated. It took Marvel Jesus to beat Jesus.
Marvel Jesus.
Marvel Jesus. It took Marvel Jesus to beat Jesus. That's fucking awesome. Like it's great, and it is doing extremely well. And anytime a Marvel movie does well, that's good for the genre.
Good, CD.
I'm offended. So funny. I was talking to Chris about this beforehand. I don't want to get into heavy detail, but I'm an admin on a Facebook page, and like there's this big to do on the page earlier today about offense and what people find offensive, and but some people, just because it's offensive to one person doesn't mean it's offensive to others, and just because you find it not offensive doesn't mean it's not offensive. I mean, it was just like, good God. I was exhausted by the end of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I saw a thing today that it was a if you know, you know.
Yeah.
And it was Chris Evans standing at like a board for like Inside Out, and it said Inside Out. It says if you know, you know.
I don't know.
Oh. Well, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
But
I haven't seen Inside Out yet, so maybe that's part of it. I'm still offended by Trump saying grab him by the you know what, but to be fair, that was real offense. No, that was fucking offensive. That was offensive to
Yeah, that was
anybody
offensive to any decent human
any
being.
decent human being. What was it about the Viking face paint? That was it, essentially, Jeepo. Jeepo is in the same group. It was, I'm an admin on that page, and it was just this guy was testing out Viking face paint, and he was like, "Hey guys, what do you think?" And he used a lot of black, and there were a lot of people that went, "Ugh, it looks a lot like blackface," and maybe not. And for the most part, most people were kind of like advising him to maybe revisit it or redesign it. And there were some people that got offended or that were like the border of offense. And then and there was one guy that got, I guess I didn't see them because they had been one of the other admins that removed him. This one guy got really kind of shitty about defending this guy, and then the guy went. He removed the post. He apologized, and then people started and a really great apology. And then people started griping about.
You said you didn't want to get into it.
Apology. I don't want to get into it, but Jeepo saw it, so
yeah.
Anyway, it was one of those things that you're like, "Good God's Almighty, calm down." It wasn't blackface. It's not even close to it. Blackface is very specific. But anyway, I want a couple of things I want to bring up.
Why don't you hit on a couple things before we get into
before we get into Batman?
Yeah.
So apparently in Marvel Comics, this is comic book news. In Marvel Comics, the Green Goblin has officially been killed. Now we're not talking about Norman Osborn. Now Norman Osborn is still alive.
No one's ever really dead in comics except Uncle Ben.
Except for Uncle Ben, yes. And even he has been brought back in What If story.
Which I actually saw that recently with a picture of Hugh Jackman and Robert Downey Jr. And it says, first rule of comics, no one in comics is actually dead except Uncle Ben.
Except Uncle Ben. Yeah. But anyways, so basically what they had done is they had used technology and comic book technology and whatnot to extract all of the sins of Norman Osborn. Basically, the personality of the Green Goblin had become this force, this like
kind of like what they did in the first Spider-Man movie. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, where it was another personality where that
right.
talked to him.
It's very much the case, but it's more than just another personality, and now it's actually something. It had become something that was almost tangible,
an entity
of
its own right.
For a couple of issues, there was this technology, and it would been put into one of Craven's spears, and it was like he got stabbed with spider. The Green Goblin got stabbed, or Norman got stabbed with it. It extracted the Green Goblin out of Norman, and then Spider-Man turned around and got stabbed with it. And it basically the personality of the Goblin transferred it into Peter. And so the Green Goblin, or the Goblin entity, really wanted Peter at this point, And so for a couple of issues, it was the Spider Goblin, and he was fighting against it, and he was
Spider-Man suit with a goofy hat.
No, it was basically It was a combination of the Spider-Man suit with this goblin-y face, and there was an actual physical transformation. It's comic books, what you can do. But not my favorite kind of thing, but it was kind of cool just to kind of with the understanding, because over the last, Marvel loves redemptive stories. They love taking their villains and trying to make them better, or trying to give them a chance to get better. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
The Magneto story back in
Magneto
the 80s.
right now, yeah, for sure. Magneto is Professor M right now. He is
I mean, back in the 80s, though, with the whole trial of Magneto and all that.
Magneto's redemptive arc has started in the 80s and progressed and has been going, and he's had his ups and downs. And at this point right now, he's more of and has been for quite a while, more of a heroic role. And so Norman Osborn, they've been trying to do that with Norman. He was the Gold Goblin for a while, and he was raised more of a superhero kind of thing. And so basically throughout this story and throughout what they've done with this, they have made the Goblin entity is now been destroyed, and Norman is Norman is now I'm behind in my Spider-Man comic reading right now, so I haven't even read these. But apparently Norman is free of the Goblin. He's free of the madness of the Goblin. I think he still has the physical enhancements, like he still has the enhanced strength that the Green Goblin formula gave him. And he of course still has all the technology, but he doesn't. He and Peter, he even says at one point, he goes, Peter, I know that we've been through so much, but I really hope that perhaps someday we can be friends. And Peter's like, you never know, or maybe, whatever. They left on a good note at the very least. So anyway, we see the end of a character that has come back and forth, been back and forth over the ensuing decades. Norman Osborn was dead for the longest time, and they resurrected him, that he never quite died or whatever. They've done a lot of stuff, and so seeing this happen, I mean, my guess is, some writer will get bored and will decide to bring the Goblin back. We'll see. Who knows? There's always that. But anyway, that was in the most recent issue of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man number 54. And then, so yeah, 55, we're going to have like a follow-up, like a wrap-up, a post kind of thing. And the current writer and artist will actually be, I believe, leaving the comic at issue 60, which happens, in a few months. And, wait, but before then, yeah. And then I think they're starting up a new art. I guess John Romita Jr. is going to be drawing the comic for a little too. So that's cool. JR is always great on Spidey. So that happened. The last thing I kind of wanted to talk about. So the whole Robert Downey Jr. becoming Dr. Doom has been a big. People are debating it back and forth, up and down in the comic books. I found an article that was basically like the 5 things that Robert Downey Jr. needs to do, and that the MCU needs to do to make Dr. Doom amazing. And some of the things we've even talked
about. He leaves the mask on.
Well, yes, that's one of them. Let's start at the top. Sorcery and super science. He needs to
combine them,
or he needs to be able to use both of them. He doesn't have to use them both at the same time, but
that's a keystone for Doom.
It's a big fucking thing. If we don't see them both in the same movie, that's fine, but it needs to be established that he is an expert at both. As it was recently, as I talked about last week, Dr. Doom is now the Sorcerer Supreme of the Marvel Universe. Stephen Strange passed it on to finish up this for him to basically cast a spell that would help to defeat the vampire invasion that was going on right now, or it was going on in the storyline Blood Hunt that they were doing. Strange had to pass on the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme to Dr. Doom with the intent that Victor would give it back when the world was safe. And then Dr. Doom,
of course,
and at the end, the Dr. Doom went, I've just begun saving the world. And then basically dismissed Doctor Strange, because he was just standing there in astral form. And so yeah, because most of the time the mantle is passed on when one dies. So Stephen had to do something different.
Right.
Passed on a portion of his soul basically to it. So it was, so anyway, so magic and science both need to be a part of Dr. Doom's thing. It said in the comics that Dr. Doom is actually smarter than Reed Richards, but he's held back by his own arrogance and villainy. And he needs to be able to go toe-to-toe with Reed Richards, and then also be able to handle magic as well. He needs to have diabolical schemes, number 2. He needs to he's a planner. He's the kind of guy that thinks out his plans well in advance.
Well, they're saying that basically the first one, which is Doomsday, is going to be pretty much the setup for him creating Battleworld.
Right. And it's going to lead into Secret War. similar to what happened in the most recent Secret War comic book. Because the original Secret Wars was in the mid 80s was the 12-issue series that basically was really more about selling toys, but it ended up being a pretty good comic. It ended up doing some really fun stuff and establishing some cool stuff, and people really dug it. And it's remembered very well.
It introduced God.
It did at the Beyonder, and
It gave us Venom.
It gave us Venom, the beginnings of Venom, the black suit. It gave us the Thing leaving the Fantastic Four for a while, and She-Hulk coming in and being the brick on the FF. It established relationships between some of the teams and some of the characters that hadn't been established in the past. I mean,
it introduced a couple of characters too.
It did a bunch of characters. So it did some really great things. Secret Wars 2, the sequel, was not as good, but it was still kind of cool. It brought the Beyonder to Earth. It was definitely not as strong of a follow-up. Now, they did Secret War again back in like 16, and it was basically a way to kind of do like a soft reboot on the Marvel universe, and not quite reboot everything, but it rebooted a lot of stuff. So, and largely what it did was take some of the like two characters still left over from the Ultimate Universe and bring them into the main Marvel universe, mainly Miles Morales, and I think there was one or two other characters. It was still really fucking cool ultimately, and it made Doom, even though he had orchestrated it and created this thing, it made Doom into a good guy for a while. And now we're seeing a resurgence of using Doom as an antagonist again, because now that Doom is the Sorcerer Supreme, the next big storyline that's going to start in November is going to be it's called One World Under Doom. And it's going to be making Dr. Doom again this massive protagonist. And again, the best villains feel like and think they are doing the best, think that they are right. And Dr. Doom has always felt that he's right. So anyway, schemes within schemes among schemes. I mean, he's the kind of guy that makes deals with the devil and ends up on the right side of it. You know, rivalry with Reed Richards. That is a core part of Dr. Doom.
And I'm curious how they're going to bring that in. If they're setting the Fantastic Four in the 60s, I want to know how they're going to do this set in modern times.
Exactly. I want to see some sort of anti-aging technology or a magic spell that keeps him younger. Maybe going into suspended animation for a while. All kinds of different things that need to be.
Can Mr. Fantastic actually go into cryo freeze? Wouldn't that break down his elasticity?
It probably would. Actually, from what I understand, he can. I mean, he can be hurt in like that kind of stuff. He can be burned. He can be frozen. There was a scene in one of the issues of the latest issue of FF, because they tied it into the whole vampire blood hunt thing, where he stretched too fast, too quick, too big and too fast, and he actually tore his skin. And he had to his skin ripped, and he had to like adjust and turn the wound in like the interior, because he was blocking the vampires, and he was trying to make it so the vampires couldn't bite and couldn't pierce his skin, but his skin had been pierced. So he was like, I got to make sure this wound stays away from them. It was actually pretty cool. But anyways, yeah, the almost obsessive hatred or rivalry that he has.
It's not Reed. Almost obsessive. It is obsessive.
It is obsessive. The obsessive rivalry he has with Reed has got to be explored and needs to be established. It's very, very fucking important, and they need to deal on that. I mean, and it's interesting that it's evolved, because it started off they were rivals in college, and then various things happened, and then they became rivals as superheroes, and then at one point, several times actually, Reed has had to call in Doom for help on things. I mean, like I said, more recently was to help Sue give birth, because of the powers that are involved and everything else. And he was like, I want to name the daughter, and I want to be your godfather. And so now he is kind of Uncle Victor to Valeria Richards. So, but at the same time, he's still like, he's not a frenemy, but he's definitely, there was at one point they at least had come to an understanding, the two of them. Last two things. The other thing here, we have the mask. The mask is fucking important. And in this article, it even has the page in the comics where he makes the mask and he wears it and he explains how he's the only one that can remove it and things like that. The mask is super important. Dr. Doom does not take his mask off, or at least for the longest time did not take his mask off. It was extremely important because it was part of his vanity. It was the small scar from what Ditko had said, or I think it was Jack Kirby had expressed that he had a small scar, or like he was
Doom always portrayed it as he was horrifically scarred under the mask.
Right. I think you were the one that brought it up.
Yeah.
That Jack Kirby was like, yeah, the little scar like on his lip.
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible. It was nothing. But Doom was such an example of his failure that's why he covered it.
Yeah, and it showed that he was human.
Right. And then
he was just a mere human.
But then at one point he did end up at one point he ended up taking the mask when it was hot and and put it on his face and scarred himself even further. And then at the end of the new Secret War, his face had been healed, and it was a sign of his new lease. Okay, Victor, you have the opportunity to do good now.
Bold facial.
Yeah, crazy. That's one way to do a skin peel. Anyway, so the mask
opens the pores right up.
Yeah, really opens the pores up. The mask needs to stay on. It's very, very important to the character. I mean, I'm fine with a reveal, like maybe after he's had some growth of character and whatever else. But RDJ needs to keep the mask on, man. Mm-hmm. And in fact, they need to keep the masks on for all of these characters. I hate the fact that Peter lands and starts talking to people and he takes his mask off. Takes the mask off, or like Tony, the only ones that didn't do that kind of thing was when Steve Rogers was in his, Captain America suit and couldn't do that. He didn't have like a button he could press with like that.
It's actually still surprising. He didn't just go, wow. Yeah. So,
but then he did end up acting often as Captain America without a mask on because he didn't, at a certain point, they were like, secret identity. Who needs a secret identity?
Well, he didn't have one anyway.
That way, he never really, he did for a little, it kind of did, but.
He did back in the 40s, but in the MCU.
Well, yeah.
I'm talking about in the MCU. In the MCU, he never had a secret identity.
In the Marvel Universe, he maintained a secret identity for a while. I mean, not everybody knew that Steve Rogers was Captain America, but then after a while, it just got to a point where like, nah. Secret identities in the Marvel Universe are not as important as they are in the DC universe. It's Batman, Superman, most of these other superheroes still maintain a pretty solid secret identity. In the Marvel Universe, they're not near as common. Like Daredevil and Peter Parker, those are the only ones I can really think of off the top of my head that are still very much a part of that character. A lot of the other ones just like, that's my job. I'm a superhero.
I'm a very good lawyer.
Yeah. I think I would say a lot of that happened after Civil War in the comic books. Around the Civil War, when they did that, they kind of did away with a lot of the whole idea of a lot of secret identities. Now, the last thing that they said in this article, and I agree with this, is gravitas. Dr. Doom needs to have a lot of gravitas. He needs to be able to be the guy that everybody listens to in the room. When he enters the room, everybody knows who he is, and they want to hang out with that guy. He has to be witty,
but not snarky.
He needs to be because Tony Stark was snarky. Doom can't be. He can be a little bit of a smartass from time to time. Everybody is, but he needs to have a certain amount of
He
wit.
has to
but
have that arrogance.
he has
That's
to be
the
arrogant, like there's no tomorrow. He has to, and like I said, he has to be the guy that can be believable that he is the leader of a country that walks around in a fucking mask and cloak,
yeah,
you know,
and armor.
and armor. I mean, like a great example of was when in the comics was when the X-Men had their gala, their Hellfire Gala, and invited, you know, people from around the world to show up to come to this gala, which is a lot like the Met Gala in New York, and everybody was dressed to the nines. They were all wearing different versions or more like kind of haute couture versions of their costumes, stuff like that. And Doom showed up in looking amazing. You know, he still had the mask and he was wearing the cloak, but had like this really cool looking double-breasted suit and the whole thing. It was a really cool design. But and he was the guy, and because he's a world leader. Same thing with Namor. Namor did a similar kind of thing. He's a world leader. So gravitas is a big important thing too. And these are the things they need.
Yeah, I agree, Ojipo. He can't show up in the one he showed up in at Comic-Con. That outfit was not.
Well, that was thrown together.
And to be honest, to this day, Doom's costume is one of my favorites of all time.
It's a classic. It's so classic because it's armor with a tunic over it and a huge cloak and hood. That's it.
I've always loved Doom's outfit.
Yeah. And it's a classic green, and you know, like
it's the green I like too.
The green, but sometimes he'd have purple elements. Like the armor tended to be gray, but it would have like some purple, like shadowing. They'd use purple to shadow it. So, and purple and green are often either like colors of villainy or they're colors of at least aggression. So yeah, because the Hulk is purple and green, but he's not a villain. But almost every other green,
Joker is purple and green.
The Joker is purple and green. The Vulture is green and with a little bit of purple.
He's not a good pick.
Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor.
Yep.
He had the colors purple and green. So when you think of the Transformers, the Constructicons were all purple and green. A lot of villainous characters have been those colors. So he and like I said, Dr. Doom, whose armor it like rivals Iron Man for complexity and advanced technology, has almost always been, at least relatively, the design element has almost always been the same because it's classic. You know, the gold medallions on the sides here with the, you know, the cloak clasps, and you know, hell, without that, the armor almost looks incomplete.
Yeah.
You know, without that cloak, if he takes it off, it's relatively simple. And the mask doesn't move. It's a static mask. It's not like, you know. So I'm looking forward to this on some level because I love Dr. Doom as a villain. He's one of my favorite villains. And I think RDJ can do well. It's how they write it.
I think he can too. I just wish they would have got somebody else to do it.
I agree. I also feel like
I don't think his voice is right for Doom either.
Well, I think Doom needs to have a slight accent.
Well, but I think he needs to have a deeper voice too. Doom to me has always been this commanding character with this deep booming voice.
A deep voice. No, not booming. Booming when he wants it to be.
Yes.
But I think he speaks very carefully, very specifically.
And people listen.
He's probably got a bit of a Transylvanian because Latveria is supposed to be in Central Europe, like
right.
Romania.
Yep.
You know.
Oh yes, so it's always been the.
And it's very light though. It's not. Yes. He's not Dracula. Blah blah. So he's very light.
Yes.
And there were times when he would be a cackling villain and you know, and it would be, you know, Richards, you know, and that kind of thing, you know. But then he would also be, you know, quiet and specific and speak, you know, softly because he didn't need to shout, you know, that kind of thing. But it would be a deeper register and not, you know, And that's the other thing too. I mean, it also depends on what era you're talking about. I mean, there were times when Doctor Doom was that typical Marvel cackling villain, whereas I will take over the world, and but that was the '60s, and almost all the villains. Were
Yeah.
like so Magneto was that way too.
They were all over the top.
They're way over the top. So even into the '70s, and then the '80s happened, and that kind of thing started to compress a little bit. It started to there was a lot less of that as we moved into the '80s. So it depended. Yeah. It was we saw a lot of maturing of the comics
So
in the '80s.
Before we run out of time, let's talk about. So Amazon has a new show,
right?
Batman: The Caped Crusader.
Yes.
We
talked about this a little bit.
There are 10 episodes out.
Right. I was surprised at that. I didn't know that they had dropped the entire season.
I didn't realize that either. Here, I'm gonna move my mic up a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
No, come on, tighten. There we go. I watched the first episode today.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what you were saying earlier in the Nerd Basement on Discord,
right.
which you can get if you subscribe. You can
right.
join our Discord channel and
right.
talk with us anytime.
Yep.
I think the animation is fantastic.
Yes. It's one of those things because it is very much in the same style of the original Batman the Animated Series with Paul Dini,
but a little different.
A little bit different. It's very reminiscent of the '40s style. There's a lot of the characters, the costume, the cars.
Yes,
which is very similar to the old Batman show too.
I like how they're drawing Bruce.
Yeah.
The so far the voice acting has been good. We'll see how that continues.
He's not a carbon copy of Kevin.
No, he's not.
It's not. He's not doing. But it's
but
still
but there have been changes made.
Yes.
And one, I like the way they're drawing Bruce. I think the piercing blue eyes, I think that stands out. I like that. Alfred is younger
and
portly
and shorter and heavier. That's actually very much the way Alfred was depicted in the early comics when he first showed up. He was shorter, he was heavier, and he was a bit bumbly. They're not doing that.
But. And Bruce calls him Pennyworth instead of Alfred.
Right.
He referred to him as Pennyworth. So we'll see how that goes. They have done a racial shift on the Gordons.
Yes, Jim and Barbara are both
which
black.
I'm fine with. I actually don't have a problem with that, and we'll get into those things later. At Barbara being a prosecutor, I'm not sure about.
I thought she was a
defense attorney. I mean,
she's a defense attorney because
Harvey wants to hire her.
Right.
Harvey with his coin already, though.
Well, Harvey had the coin. It was like basically a trophy he took from somebody he prosecuted, and he kind of carried it for good luck. And then when he became Two-Face, he marred one side of it.
Yeah,
it was the double-sided coin. So that tracks.
Yeah.
It tracks that he is a politician. It tracks that he is
running for mayor.
It tracks that he was very ambitious. And again, but having Barbara as a prosecuting attorney, defense attorney at all is, it's a little far afield. I mean, she in the comics she was a librarian originally, and Barbara eventually becomes Batgirl. One would hope we'd see that happen in this movie or in the show, but having the daughter of the police commissioner becoming a superhero, it's almost like you can see the writing on the wall there. Her being a librarian was a little more like, that's
you mean being a lawyer?
Well, her being a lawyer and then eventually becoming a superhero. It ends up, it kind of, I don't know, kind of, it's like, it's a little too obvious, her being a librarian and becoming a superhero, that's unexpected,
Nobody expects the librarians.
She was she was like,
see you, Jipo.
See you later, Jipo. She had a master's in or like a belt, master black belt in judo. She was she was a very effective person before she became Batgirl, but still, I don't know. Having that's a different ship. I get though trying to bring the character into make it make a little more sense or make it easier for her to be involved with the Batman show. So there's that.
So the
There
other
was also-
thing is that the first villain they use is Penguin,
Right.
and that's where the big change is, and it's because they made Penguin a tall woman.
Yes, a tall
cabaret singer woman.
She's kind of an Amazon-y kind of.
Yeah.
Not to associate.
Still has the big nose. Still dresses the exact same way.
Right.
Still has the monocle. Her name is
Oswalda.
even Oswalda.
Yeah. That's what the fuck.
So.
And
that's one I actually have a problem with that one.
I do too.
And it's not because it's not the whole gender bend thing. Well, it kind of is in this case, but it's also just, it's pandering at this point. They didn't change anything else about the character. There's no reason for Penguin to be a woman in this case.
Right.
It doesn't change the story. The only thing it does is it gives her 2 kids,
Yeah.
one of which she offs right away to make her more of a cackling villain.
Particularly brutal way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get the reasoning behind it. The Penguin has always been a short, creepy guy. Yeah. And
like if he wasn't powerful and he wasn't rich, because he comes from a rich family. That's the thing. The Cobblepots were rivals to the Waynes when it came to their wealth. They even established that in the old movie. He was a wealthy, person, but if he didn't have all that stuff, he would have been just this like weird little guy, And if they had adjusted the character a bit more.
So here's my thing. And here's my thinking. I don't have a problem with changing things generally. Unless you're changing the main character, like changing Batman to be a woman or something like that would just wouldn't go. Batman should always be a rich white guy. He's a spoiled white guy. Yeah. That's just my opinion on that one. Superman should always be Clark Kent anyway, and this is Bruce Wayne as well. Bruce Wayne should always be a rich white guy. Clark Kent should always be a white guy. And it's not because I care that much about their race. It's just that fits for what they are. The spoiled.
It's been established for 80 plus years.
Right.
Almost
now,
90 at this point.
Changing characters like Gordon and Barbara, changing their doing a racial shift on them, that doesn't bother me at all. One, there isn't enough representation in comics for those for people of color. Period. Yeah. So I don't actually even have a problem generally if they're going to even shift a hero's color. That wouldn't affect me that much. Shifting gender is a little bit different. If it works for the story, I'm fine with it. But in this case, again, I think it's pandering. I think it's just trying to show that they're to use a horrible term that I hate is woke, but that they're progressive, that they're they can do this. But it's not like there's an underrepresentation of female villains in the Batman universe. He's got some great ones.
Yeah. Poison
Ivy, Catwoman, Talia al Ghul.
Oh yeah.
I mean, all of those are
Harley Quinn,
Harley Quinn. Yeah, well, she came in the cartoon before, but she's become one. But yes, I mean, all of them are fantastic female villains. There's no reason to make Penguin a female.
A female, yeah. If anything, it's funny too because like a lot of those female villains have also gone on to in redemptive story arcs. Ivy has more of an anti-hero these days. She's
an environmental warrior.
Right. She's in a relationship with Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is also very much in a redemptive story arc and has
trying to be better.
Time. Right. Talia al Ghul, she's still a villain, but she is also still the mother of Bruce's child too. So there's that. Catwoman has been one of those characters that's never really been. In her earliest career, depictions.
She's a thief.
but right, going into all the way into the 70s, she's always been a thief. Um, even into the 80s and stuff. In the 80s is where they tried to start to make her more of an anti-hero, and it's kind of always stuck. She's an anti-hero slash that still
It's
it's kind of she's
like,
Robin Hoodish. She steals from the
yeah.
rich but the poor,
Well, and her feelings
Takes care of herself for a while.
for Batman slash Bruce come
Mhm.
through too, and that
Yeah,
she's like, no, I'm not going to change for you, but I'm
right. Whereas Oswalda is definitely a villain, but she's also a villain because I mean, making her freakish looking, making her ugly, essentially, or at least on some level. I don't know. I mean, she's very brassy, and like I said, they showed the Iceberg Lounge, and instead of a lounge, it's a ship that people can go that the rich go to, and she's performing
mhm,
kind of a not a burlesque performance, but she's
a
singing.
cabaret.
A cabaret performance. And it's very evident that she's a larger woman, and because of that hooked nose, and she's comedic, she's flirty, probably as part of and she's got a monocle. I mean, how many often do you see a woman with a monocle? Still got the top hat, um,
And the umbrella.
and the umbrella. It's very much like she's that brassy, heavy set girl that compensates because with being funny because she's maybe not as attractive as others. And it was almost gross to me. I'm like, you're leaning into that stereotype that I
Mhm.
didn't care for.
Yeah.
I've known women
And
that were like her and that are awesome, and it's great people, wonderful. I mean, some of
CD,
the
I did
funniest
think the
people I
episode
know are
was
like
good.
that.
I mean, if you didn't care for that, I would say I'm going to try the other. I'm going to keep watching. It
Well, I'm
looks
gonna
like
keep watching. Yeah,
looking ahead. Catwoman comes in episode 3.
Christina Ricci.
Oh, is she doing the voice?
Yep.
Okay. Um,
I am overall
I enjoyed it
enjoyed it.
overall.
Yeah.
I mean, I just that one thing I had a problem with. And
Yes, me too. I've been meaning to go back and watch, like, do a rewatch of the old cartoon. Actually, I did.
I'm
Like,
actually doing that as well.
I
I
watched
have
like
that on
4
once in a while, like
episodes.
when I'm painting.
It's interesting to watch like the pilot 2 episodes and then watch the 3rd episode because it was like they did the pilot episode and it wowed them. So then they got more budget.
Yeah.
There is a distinct there's a distinct improvement in animation. I mean, the art's still there. The art's still great, but there's a distinct improvement in animation quality from between episodes 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Like 3 is substantially
But
better.
but yeah, I figure we'll keep talking about them as we watch them.
Mhm.
So far, I like I said, I like the
10
animation. I
episodes.
like the acting. I thought the
Yeah.
story was solid.
Yeah.
I just thought that the characterization was bad, was poor.
And I gotta agree with you in a lot of ways. I mean, as a comic book reader that's going back to my early days, and as somebody that a Gen Xer in his early 50s, I struggle with the whole wokeness, progressiveness kind of thing for wokeness, progressiveness sake. And
I agree with it. I think we need
I think,
inclusion. We
yes,
need all
we need
that.
inclusion
But
and stuff, but we don't need to suddenly change a long-standing character's race or
it
gender just to sell books.
yeah,
Or
it
just
doesn't need to be
to hook
forced.
people, right? If you're going to if you want a black Batman, make another character, which they've done, a black character that is part of the Bat family, like with Batwing. It was Lucius Fox's like son who took on a role, a character called Batwing, and then I think he also one of the Fox has like 2 sons, also became Batman for a while when they were trying to establish this like second generation or next generation of characters. The same thing with Superman.
That's one of the things, though, is that the main characters never retire because they never get old enough to retire in the
that was
comics.
the thing. They were
like Batman's been around for 80 years and he's still Bruce Wayne.
They were trying to do that for a minute. There was one of the last things that Dan Didio, the former publisher and chief editor of DC Comics, was trying to do that. He was trying to essentially retire the older generation, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, and bring in these younger versions of the characters. Superman's son Jonathan, a new Wonder Woman or Wonder Girl who would become Wonder Woman, Yara Flor, who's this Latina, and then this new Batman who would be like is a black character, and then people were like, well, what about the sidekicks that have grown up? What about Nightwing? What about Troya and some of these other characters? And he's like, we'll figure something out with them later. Let's do this. And people were like, nobody liked that whole idea. They liked those characters, the new Wonder Woman or Wonder Girl. I think she's going with Wonder Girl. The new Jonathan Kent, the new Superman. But they're like, why can't we have both? And so that's what they have now, is they have both of those characters. Superman going around adventuring with his teenage son, and that kind of thing. So, but like I said, if you want racially diverse characters, then create racially diverse characters. Don't change a character. It seems like pandering. Don't turn this character. Miles Morales is one of the most popular Marvel characters.
And the thing is, though, coming from white guys,
right?
Our opinions actually don't have a lot.
We don't have a whole lot
of merit.
But that's the thing, though. I have talked to a number of fans of that are black or Hispanic. I've got friends that are both of those, or of various different races, that kind of often agree with me. They don't like the idea of Superman suddenly being a black guy, or Batman suddenly being Bruce Wayne suddenly being a black guy. They would prefer, most of the guys, the people I've talked to, and I'm not the gospel on this. I'm not, but a lot of the people that I know, a lot of people that I have talked to would prefer not to have a sudden racial shift in a character like that without a story behind it. Like I said, Luke Fox became another Batman for a while, and that was pretty cool. They established a Superman from a parallel Earth he was President Superman, and he was drawn to look like Barack Obama, sort of, and at least reminiscent of Barack Obama, and he was a black guy. He wasn't Kal-El. He was from another part of Krypton that ended up coming to Earth, but he was still, he was black. There was, like I said, the same thing, Miles Morales, the second Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. He's easily one of the most popular characters in Marvel right now. They based 2 whole movies around him. He's a black Latino, and he's great. They've even made him he's currently a vampire now too.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, in the comic, he got, I think, Varney, the original vampire, the one that predates Dracula, turned him. But at the end of Blood Hunt, when Doom cast the spell that opened up they were using the Dark Force energy to block off the sun, and Doom cast the spell, and then they defeated Varney, and they defeated the whole thing because Varney was becoming a god. He was basically using his whatever. And Dracula, who teamed up with the good guys to stop him, Dracula and Miles at the end of it were like, oh, the sun. Wait a minute. And Dracula starts laughing, and he goes, when you save the world owes you a debt. And so all of the vampires now in the Marvel Universe do not burn in the sun. So that's a whole new thing. So
they're all daywalkers.
Yeah. So no,
it means Blade's not special anymore.
Blade, well, that was the thing. At first, Blade was depicted as the villain of this thing that had started this thing, but it turned out that this other ancient vampire possessed him. They also introduced Blade has a daughter, and she is also a day-walking vampire hunter. So that was actually a pretty cool character. We'll have to talk.
All right. Well, we should close things up. We're over 2 hours.
Yeah, we're over. We got to go. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Remember, here at Nerds with Alcohol, we try and keep an open mind about everything, and try and talk about those kinds of things. So be sure to keep your mind open. Hopefully you voted today. Today was the primary.
Yep.
For local more so local governments. Be sure to tell all your friends about us. Keep listening. We're trying to get to that 100 mark for our followers. We're at 96. We really just giving those last 4 would be really great. So tell your friends about us. Come see us every Tuesday night here at 8 o'clock. We are on all the places you can find quality podcasting. We are not gaming this Friday because we just gamed last Friday. Come and see us also Fridays at 7:30 in the Nerd Basement for Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, look, hey, real quick at the end, Stella got me the new Dragonlance novel.
Nice.
For the third in the trilogy. I haven't read the previous ones yet, but they do fall in the storyline of the original 3 apparently. So as
Cool.
Tracy Margaret Rice and Tracy Hickman. So cool. But yeah,
we'll be back next week.
Yeah, come and see us 7:30 every other Friday night to watch us play D&D.
Yeah, and you can follow us on most social medias. We're on. Hey, Ollie, 1958. Cheap viewers on.
Cheap viewers on what?
Yeah.
Cheap viewers on. Hey, Ollie. Welcome, Ollie.
But yeah, so you can follow us on most of the social medias. We're on Facebook, Nerds with Alcohol Show. We are on nice.
Yeah,
we're on everywhere else, Drinking Nerds, YouTube, Instagram, all those places. So
yeah.
but yeah, we're I don't know how long you were on, Ollie, but we're just wrapping up here. So
see us again next week.
Yeah, we'll be here next week, 8 o'clock Eastern time. So Prime for the win. Is there gum in those? Oh, dried hard gum sticks.
No, that's magic cards. They don't come with gum.
But all right. So yeah, I think that's gonna about do it.
That should do it.
So until next time. Slancha.
That
was a pretty good one. All right. Yeah. Have a good week, everybody.
Good night.
Well, I'd like to tell the story of the band. La, la, la.